The village of Katala had once breathed with rhythm. At dawn, drums spoke to the sun. Children ran barefoot across red soil, their laughter rising with the smoke of morning fires. Elders told stories beneath the baobab tree, and the land answered them with peace. Then the boots came. They arrived with iron discipline and pale flags marked with a foreign crown. British officers rode in on horses, their faces unreadable, their rifles shining like cold promises. Behind them marched African men already broken, forced porters chained to a system they did not choose. The village froze. Orders were shouted in harsh English tones. No one understood the words, but everyone understood the meaning. Homes were searched, food stores were seized, men were dragged out and lined up. Anyone who hesitated felt the butt of a rifle against their ribs. Work was demanded, roads to be carved through sacred land, crops to be harvested not for the village, but for ships waiting at distant ports. When the men collapsed from hunger and exhaustion, the whips answered. A young mother named Asha clutched her son to her chest as soldiers stormed her hut. The child cried, sensing danger. A soldier tore the boy from her arms and threw him aside as if he were nothing more than a sack of grain. Asha screamed, not in anger, but in a sound so raw it seemed to tear the air itself. Nearby, children who once played among flowers were struck down for running, for crying, for simply being in the way. The ground darkened, not with detail, but with meaning, with loss that could never be undone. The British officers called it order. The villagers called it the end of the world. By nightfall, Kitala was no longer a village. It was a labor camp. Fires burned where homes once stood. The drums were smashed. The baobab stood alone, listening to the weeping of the black mothers who held empty arms. As chains were fastened around wrists and necks, one elder whispered through broken lips, "This is not the end. This is only the long night." And the night did not end. Morning came, but it brought no light. The captives were marched toward the coast, men limping, women carrying grief heavier than any load, children stumbling beside them in silence. Those who fell were not lifted. They were left where they dropped, nameless to the empire, unforgettable to the land. Asha walked among them, her eyes hollow. Her child was gone, yet her heart still beat, and with every step something inside her hardened, not into hatred, but into memory. The British overseers pushed harder. Work never stopped. Bodies were tools. Lives were numbers. The sound of crying children became background noise to colonial ambition. But the land watched. At night, whispers traveled between the captives, stories of villages burned, of children lost, of mothers buried without graves. These stories stitched the broken people together. Pain became language, suffering became history. One evening, as rain fell like morning tears, an old man began to hum a forbidden song, soft at first, then stronger. Others joined. The guards shouted, but the song did not stop. It carried the names of the dead, the faces of the children, the truth the empire tried to erase. Asha lifted her head for the first time. "They can kill us," she said quietly, "but they cannot kill what we remember." Years later, the British would write reports. They would speak of progress, of civilization, of duty. But the soil of Katala would remember the bloodless cries, the stolen childhoods, the chains. And long after the empire faded, the story remained, passed from mouth to mouth, from heart to heart, not as revenge, but as truth, because the black people did not disappear. They endured.